Travis here with Chaparral Motorsports, and we're at Glen Helen Raceway today. I need to change my sprocket and my chain, so I'm going to show you how. While we're at it, I'm going to go down a few teeth so I can get some more top end going up and down these hills here. Let's get started. All right, so what I'm going to be putting on my 2018 YZ450F, we've got a set of ProTaper sprockets, front and rear. I'm switching my color to black this time. I currently have blue on there. A new ProTaper Pro Series forged racing chain. I'm really excited to see how long this chain's going to last. I get exceptional life out of the standard MX Gold chain that ProTaper offers. So being that this one's forged, it should be a lot stronger. Also a Flow Motorsports titanium sprocket bolt kit. This should be a real trick. Save a little bit of weight in the rear end. And then all the tools I'm going to need to get started. So our first step is we're going to put the bike into gear and we're going to loosen the big nut on the counter sprocket. Once that big nut is loose, we're going to take off the rear wheel. So after we've put the bike in gear, now's a good time to loosen the counter sprocket nut while the chain is still on. That's going to help keep it in place. So now that the bike's in gear, come on over to the other side and apply some pressure to the rear brake. I have just a little screwdriver that I put into the swing arm pivot hole, and that's going to help apply pressure to the rear wheel, which will allow us to get that counter sprocket nut loose. So we have the bike in gear, we have the brake pedal with pressure, and I just got the tabs folded back on the washer. Now it's time to break it free. Now that we got the counter shaft nut broke free, I'm going to move to the back and start breaking loose the sprocket bolt nuts. I still like to keep the chain and the rear wheel on when I loosen up the sprocket nuts. It just keeps it easier and keeps the rear wheel in place. So now that we have the sprocket bolts and nuts broke free, it's time to take the chain off as well as the rear wheel. There's a few ways to take the C-clip off, which holds your master link together. Some guys like to just take a flathead and pop it off. Other guys will take a set of pliers and pop it off as well using the pins. So I'll try one of the methods and see how it goes. So you're gonna wanna keep the bike back in gear, and let's just give it a punch with the flathead. There we go. And just like that, we got the C-clip off. So now that the C-clip's off, we can pull the front plate off, remove the master link, and get rid of the old chain. This is why I think it's so important to break loose the nuts and bolts while it's still on the bike, because trying to break them loose with the sprocket exposed like this, I don't know, it could be dangerous in some situations. That's something I always recommend too, is if you're gonna put all the money into buying a rear sprocket and a front sprocket as well as a new chain, spend the extra 10 or 12 bucks on sprocket bolts, because they come with new Loctite on them. You're not gonna worry about stripping them, trying to remove them for a second time. All right, so now that we have the sprocket removed, it's time to put the new one on. All right, so we're gonna be using the same brand sprocket, just gonna be black, and I'm actually going down a couple teeth because we're here at Glen Helen, and I want to stretch my gears out a little bit longer, get some more top end out of the bike. All right, so I'm gonna try some of these Flow Motorsports titanium sprocket bolt kit. All right, so I have some Honda Lock 3, which is high strength thread lock. This is the good stuff for sprocket bolts. So I'm just gonna apply a line like so. And it doesn't look like these have washers because it looks like there's a little bit of a nylon inside the nut, so that's gonna help secure it on as well. Just gonna get the thread started. And then once the thread is started, I'm gonna do that all the way around. So that's that for the Loctite. Now let's get these things tightened down. All right, so just like wheels on your car, when you snug up your sprocket bolts, you always want to go in a star pattern. So just like wheels on a car. So I just tightened this one now. I'm going to go all the way across to this one. After there, I'm going to come across here, go all the way across there, and just keep going back and forth. That's going to give us a universal torque all the way around. So now that we have the sprocket bolts snug tight, I'm still going to give it one more quick torque when it is actually on the bike. Now let's take the old counter sprocket off and reassemble the rear wheel onto the bike. So since I forgot to buy one, we're gonna reuse the fold-up washer, get it back on, bang, and then fold up the sides. All right, make sure you line all those grooves up with that shaft and get this thing pressed all the way on. Just like that. Put it back into gear so we can tighten it when we get the chain on. So we're going to just keep the rear wheel hand tight for now because we're still going to need to cut the chain. All right, now it's time to install the chain. So just to go over real quick of what we've already done. We've got the new front sprocket on, we've got the new rear sprocket on, we have the sprocket bolts tight, and then this front sprocket nut, it's not tight all the way. We're going to do that in the very end when we get the chain on and we can get that brake pedal down and with some pressure on the rear wheel. All right, let's open the aux. There's our master link. Gonna need that. ProTaper always provides you with a pair of latex gloves, which is really nice because when you're installing a chain, things can get really sticky. So, since we're at the track, I'm gonna be really careful with not trying to have this chain hit the ground because it comes pre-lubed and greased. So if this thing were to hit the dirt right now, it'd pick all the dirt up with it. Okay, now that we have the chain rolled around the sprocket wheels, you're always going to have to cut some additional links off depending on what you're running. So it looks like I'm going to have to cut a couple links off. After I get these links cut off, I'm going to apply the master link so we can keep the chain connected. And then once the chain's connected, that's when I'm going to tighten up the axle. I'm going to tighten the counter sprocket nut, and then we'll check the slack in our chain. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the chain tensioner bolt. I'm going to push it in so we have some more room. Therefore, when the chain stretches, I'll be back to the normal length. Okay, so now we're going to break the chain. Don't think you have some kind of household item to pull the pin out because you don't. You need a real motorcycle chain breaker, and that's gonna help get that pressed pin out of the link. They're really inexpensive. Head to shatmoto.com. We've got them all over the website. All right, so it looks like I have to take out a couple links. So, if I take this pin out, the end of this link is gonna look just like this one, which is gonna allow me to slide the master link through. The master link is an outer link. So you need to make sure when you're cutting the chain that you're cutting it to where an inner link is on the end. So the way this chain breaker works is you basically get it around the pin, you clamp it around the pin that you want to take out, and once it's clamped around the pin, you start screwing this inner bolt, and that's gonna push the pin out the top. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is tighten this down first, tighten this 14 down, so it really clamps the link. Once you clamp the link, that's when you can start tightening this one. And the whole reason I'm showing you guys this while we're out at the track is just to prove that it can be done while you're out at the track. As far as changing your chain and sprockets, it takes simple, normal tools, nothing really out of the ordinary other than this chain breaker. Okay, so check it out. The pin got pushed through, and our extra links are off. Let me screw this guy out. So we've got our pin and our extra links. And then, just like I explained, what you have here is you have two open ends, two inside links, which is going to allow us to put the master link in, which we'll do that now. All new chains come with a master link, a new C-clip, as well as some grease that they apply to the entire chain in case you wanted to apply grease to the master link, which I'm going to show you how to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to rip this open. We're going to apply a little bit of grease to each pin. Now, I've argued back and forth with my friends whether the C-clip goes on the outside of the bike or towards the inside of the wheel. It really doesn't matter. If you think that you're gonna get a sweet picture in a corner and that C-clip's gonna ruin it, then put it on the inside. But as far as myself goes, I like putting it on the outside for the simplicity of taking it on and off. So we get that in there. Okay, once that's clamped, I always like to take a pair of clamps and just double check that it's on there. All right, now when it comes to installing the C-clip, your chain, the chain rotation, the top portion of the chain is always going towards the motor. Remember that. The top horizontal portion of your chain is always going towards the motor. That C-clip needs to be away from the motor. So Pac-Man needs to be going away, going the way with your exhaust. Do not point that C-clip towards your motor because the chances of your master link coming undone is a lot more likely. As to where you're for sure the master link will not come undone if your C-clip gets properly installed, which is away from the motor. Just like I said earlier in the video, installing the C-clip, there's a couple different ways to do it, just like taking one off. As far as putting one on, I like to use a pair of pliers. I'm gonna put one end of the pliers on this pin back here, and the other end of the pliers on the front of the C-clip, allowing it to press into itself. So there's a quick, easy way as far as installing a C-clip. Okay, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're almost done here. Next step is to adjust your chain slack. After you adjust your chain slack, you're gonna tighten your front sprocket nut, and then after you tighten your front sprocket nut, you're gonna come back here and just do one last check on your sprocket bolts. So what I like to do is stick a wrench in the sprocket, because that's gonna allow the axle to put pressure on your adjustment bolts for when you're tightening your axle down. And let me tell you, you can never be too sure with how tight you tighten your rear axle bolt. Okay, so put the bike back in gear, go back onto the brake side, put your brake pedal down, and now it's time to tighten the sprocket nut. After that's tight, don't forget to flip up your tabs to prevent it from coming loose. Make sure you check your sprocket nuts and bolts one last time before you go out, and that's how you replace your chains and sprockets. Personally, as a motocross racer, I prefer ProTaper. They give me great longevity, it comes in at a great price, and the product's good quality. Don't forget to head to shopmoto.com. Check out all the chains and sprockets we have. I hope this video really helped you out. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video so we can keep making them. I'm Travis with Chaparral Motorsports. We'll see you guys next time.